Okay, so hello. I'm sorry I'm speaking in English. I wasn't really concentrating at school when we did Spanish. So Trini is going to very kindly translate, but I'm also going to speak nice and clearly, although it's hard because I feel very enthusiastic and very excited and very, very evangelical about what we're going to talk about. But we have only 20 minutes. Should we start the timer? So I'm going to talk to you about, we're going to start 35,000 years ago. We're going to start at the very beginning. Now, this word experience we see everywhere. There is even a sign on the lift that says, "Welcome to the experience venue." Now, this is kind of crazy because experiences are everywhere. Experiences and the designing of experiences is our secret sauce. It is the thing that helps us not just survive, but thrive. It is the thing that bonds us together as a tribe. It is the thing that helps us forge new identities. And designing experiences is what we're all ever so good at. And yet this word we see now as if it's a new thing, as if it's something that has to sit above a doorway. We see that word, we see CX, AX, IX, MX, PX. It's ridiculous. All we're talking about is designing experiences. So I need to do some clicking forward. That's the way this works, doesn't it? Right. So I'm going to start telling you about a book. So I spent 10 years writing a book. It was very, very painful writing this book. And what I did is every time I found an interesting story, I would put it in this great big chest of drawers. And this chest of drawers would grow with every day that passed. And eventually this book grew, and it was called The Experience Book. And what I did in this book is I was interested in going back right to the very beginning, to the fact where there's a shaman in his or her cave. And this shaman is telling stories to the group. The shaman is lighting the fire and bringing us together in a circle. The shaman is then drawing lines between you, the group in a circle, and the images around the cave. Images of the ibex, the lion, and the tribe going back many thousands of generations. And those children in that cave would remember that experience forevermore, and they would pass it on. That narrative would grow with every retelling. And I started looking at medieval cathedrals, and I was looking at things that brands were doing on the streets of New York and London, and I saw common elements, common ingredients. I saw a structure that always began with people, of course. It began as something that was very emotional, and then it became programmatic. It became a thing about story, episodic, growing with time. And then what I started seeing is, of course, we then immerse people. It isn't a single channel experience. It is something that includes all the senses, wrapping us in one dynamic environment. And so what I'm going to be talking about is, yes, don't worry, I will talk about workplaces, but I just wanted to remind us that this is what we've always done. And what I'm going to talk about is essentially a universal foundation for how we might design. Now, my business is interested in how you design experiences. It's called Free State, and we are interested in experience master planning. And we do quite a lot of workplaces. So whether it's the Suncorp Tower, which is 16 stories, whether it's AMP, which is a 54-story vertical campus, whether it's to work for Nike, all of these projects have a similar element, probably like what you're interested in. They are there to inspire good relationships. They are there to inspire productivity and innovation. We all know that. But actually, in many ways, it's not about the building. It's not about the physicality. What I keep finding, it's about the program. It's about the story, how we drive that story. And I particularly see it in our other work, because essentially, whatever we're designing, whether it might be a workplace or a university campus, or a corporate campus, or a city center campus, or a traveler campus like a station or an airport, it is always the same. We need to attract people. We need to attract people. We then need to involve them. We need to get them to participate. And then we want them to belong. We want them to come again and again and tell other people. Now, That is easy to say, but at the moment, there is great challenge around. I see empty offices. I see that there are more screens than people now. I go to offices all the time and they're totally empty. Or you go to empty streets. In London at the moment, we see empty high streets. Shops are dying because Jeff Bezos, that man, what he's done is he's the perfect retailer. He knows that convenience and cost and choice are everything. And now we don't need to go to the high street. We don't need to necessarily go to our stations because we can work from home, and we don't need to go into our cities anymore. We don't need to talk about cities through the lens of space. We need to say, I'm very worried about Fridays. Fridays don't work anymore. Mondays don't work anymore, or certainly this is what I see in Europe and North America. People are working from home, they're having that long weekend. So what I want to do is I want to attack this challenge, and I want to do it through the lens of better experiences, experiences that will attract, involve, and create a sense of belonging. So, what I'm going to tell you about is a universal foundation. I'm going to talk to you very, very quickly about strategy, about design and action. These are the things that we're going to talk about. We're going to go through it extremely quickly, and then maybe we'll talk about it later. Right. Okay, so let's start with the beginning. So we talked a little bit about Frederick Taylor. Carolina, thank you very much. We're going to talk now about this man, W. Edwards Deming. Now, Deming was an engineer. He was a technician. He was a mathematician. He was very much like Frederick Taylor. And what he was talking about in Detroit in the 1950s is he was talking particularly about a shared purpose that would bring organizations together. He was talking about the importance of the individual, not the process. He was saying individuals can change processes. And also he was saying that we need to care for the individual on the shop floor. We need to really listen to them. We need to be top-down and bottom-up simultaneously. He was saying this in the 1950s in command and control America. And nobody listened to him. Nobody listened to poor W. Edwards Deming. And then he went to Japan, and he did a talk to Japan. And there were some people in the front row who were from Datsun, later to become Toyota. And they listened very, very carefully to W. Edwards Deming. They really liked what he was talking about. And his thinking transformed their business, transformed the Japanese economy, so much so there are statues of Deming all over Japan. And when we talk today about agile and Kaizen and continual improvement, it is thanks to this man. And so what I want to do is I'm going to go through very, very quickly, the other way, what he's talking about. So firstly, that thing about strategy. So he's talking about a strategy that has a shared purpose, a big why at the top. And then from the why, he's talking about the how, the enabling layer of the process. And then he's talking about activities, not environments, right? The environments are only there to serve what we do. This is incredibly obvious. If I was designing a party for my children and I said, don't worry, we have a fantastic community center. And they go, okay, yes, fine. But what's going to happen inside this place? A great example of who does this well is Red Bull. Red Bull do this all the time. They are fantastic at leading with a big why, having the how, the enabling, making layer always in-house, and ensuring that they always lead with the activity. Brands are very good at this. Deming was also talking about design. And he was talking about it through the lens of how we focus on the activities, everything above the line. And I'll talk to you more about this in a minute. But critically, we need to obsess on the moment by moment by moment, and then every one of these layers, whether it's people and culture, brand and communications, spaces and places, or technology and platforms, is there to equip that. And an organization that's brilliant at this is the way Nike designs so many of their brand experiences. This is one that's done for Jordan. And around the outside, we have these extraordinary screens that can take me back to late 80s basketball games. But the thing they've done so well is they obsessed on what we're going to do. They have obsessed on that narrative journey bit. Don't worry, I'm going to go back to this. And then lastly, the thing about continual improvement, about action. What Deming's talking about is we're not going to just do this once with the strategy and design in place. We're going to continually do this. We're going to plan, do, study, act. We're going to plan it well. We're going to do it once. We're going to evaluate and learn from that, and we're going to do it again and again. Now, let me tell you 2 big examples. So, firstly, I know I should be telling you about workplaces, but I thought I'd tell you about an airport, because an airport, I think, is quite a good way to dig into this. And I'm going to talk about some of the work we're doing at Melbourne Airport, which is through this lens: strategy, design, and action. So remember what we said about strategy? You've got to understand the why, the how, and the what. You use that to then brief every element of design. Every element of design is obsessing by moment, and then we're going to test and learn. We're going to constantly build from there. So, Melbourne Airport, the inputs are like this, and like most of your projects, I'm sure. There are some elements of the research that are qualitative. They are observations, they are surveys, they are interviews. And then there are elements of that where we can lean into that in terms of the big data. We can look at where people are in terms of their location, and we can then compare that to the sentiment data, the marketing data. I like airports because they're quite easy to design for. Pretty much everybody I put in this end of the funnel comes out of this end of the funnel. You know what I mean? It's very linear. And so it's quite a good way to practice how you design for the experience. So these are our inputs. From there, and I know this is impossible to read, then we get into the above-the-line bit, which is obsessing on the moment by moment of all of the people we're there to serve. So we start here with the garden gate. We're there going through check-in and arrivals, and that horrible, horrible moment when you're then going through the X-ray machine, and then you get then to border control, and then you find yourself in the world's biggest shop. What we're doing is worrying about that moment. And then from there, we're thinking about how all the different departments will play their part. Now, I'm going to quickly show you a little film, and excuse the voiceover. Okay, let's see if this works. Federico? Oh. With the Experience Vision framework introduced in terms of the why, how, and what, let's bring it all together in the last little teaser with an introduction to the design briefs, the critical connecting link between the bold ambition of the vision and the build-ready scoping of action. Let's take another future-facing walk together through some of those first design cues, full of powerful prompts and provocations for the creation of something extraordinary. From the very beginning, we noted the need for end-to-end care. Now, just imagine designing for seamless human and digital support at every step, so that passengers choose their own pace of flow, feeling unflustered, informed, supported, and in control. On arrival, we heard of the importance of a sense of place. So let's create a dramatic sub to play, all supported by hosting and branding that has a cohesive, only in Queensland feel. It's a place to delight in. And finally, the gates. Passengers immerse themselves in the local First Nations culture through beautifully designed experiences. And as they step on the plane, they might reflect on the journey so far, from forecourt to gate, calm, comfortable, and happy, all their needs catered for. We hope this has given you a taste of the depth and breadth of the whole ecosystem opportunity ahead of us. Now, design teams,
Throw yourself into the Experience Framework briefing materials as your constant guide, and let's design 360-degree experiences that truly connect the world and create the future. We can't wait to see what you come up with.
So hopefully you can see in that what we're doing is this design of the journey or design of the story, or even as we're saying, designing with time is what is most important to this way of working. We have that really clear understanding of the strategy and the big overarching story, and then we use that to look at the moment by moment of all the people we're designing for. And at the moment, this has been extraordinarily successful for Melbourne Airport, particularly when it comes to things about passenger satisfaction and staff satisfaction. Now, with that in mind, and don't worry, Celeste, I'm not going to go too long over. Where are you? Are you looking worried? No, she's gone. Okay. Right. So now I'm going to tell you about Nike. And essentially, I'm going to tell you it's the same thing. And one of your questions might be, does this only work at a large scale? No, I feel it works at all scales. Now, this is a very large-scale project. So Nike World HQ is in Portland, in North America. This is a place called Beaverton. And there are 300 acres here. There is, round the outside, there is it's called a berm. It's like a kind of lifted up off the ground kind of hill around the outside. And if you've ever seen that film, Gattaca, have you seen that film? It's full of very beautiful people with fantastic teeth running around in activewear. This is what this is. There are over 20,000 people working here in all manner of different temples that celebrate the heroes of Nike's culture. And this one in the middle is the Serena Williams building. It is 150,000 square meters. It is covered in LEDs, attached to a wearable that Serena has on her wrist. And as her pulse races, the building leaps to life. This is an extraordinarily energetic campus, but the people that work there would rather be at home. They'd rather be with their dogs and their children, watching Netflix. And it's very hard to get them onto campus, even though it's so amazing. So our job was to look at how we can start to draw people back, to attract and involve them. So, exactly as we've done before, what we're doing here is leading into all that data, all that information, but we're only interested in it when it connects with the moment-by-moment experience. And then from there, we're taking that information and we're beginning to look at exactly where people are within the journey. We're looking at how that sentiment information affects them when they're on their commute, on their way in, when they're going through the entrances, when they're moving through the cafes and restaurants. And then from there, we bake that into one identity, an identity that can lead every single design, whether it's places and spaces, brand and identity, people and culture, or technology. Now, I'm going to quickly show you another film that is essentially taking that idea of the strategy and then looking at how it might brief all of those design components. Right, let's go for this one.
Nike World HQ Experience Master Plan. Let's spend 2 minutes speaking and sketching to the evolving vision and how we might all make it happen together. The Experience Master Plan leads with Nike's purpose to move the world forward through the power of sport, breaking barriers and building community to change the game for all athletes. The proposed identity for World HQ specifically is that it is the epicenter of purpose, culture and heritage that fuels collaborative innovation. It is then underpinned by 3 values: hyper-community, the building of a community-led workplace, living lab, enabling the workplace's ability to collaborate and innovate, and global host, ensuring World HQ's position as the home of Nike. Then the enablers which bring the identity and values to life. The humanware, from government structure to teams. The software, a central program-led OS supported by tech and services. And hardware, the fixed and non-fixed components of the Experience Master Plan. With the purpose, identity, values and enablers in place, we ignite the 5 themes that frame the design concepts. These are the first practical steps on the journey towards activating and managing the Experience Master Plan. And as you go through the themes in more detail, you will see different scales of activity, from something immediate like an event, to a medium-term activation like adaptive reuse, to a long-term initiative that transforms the whole infrastructure. This is where we are today. The next job is to dig into these layers, notably understanding the enablers and prioritizing the concepts, so that we can quickly make this Experience Master Plan a living, breathing reality. What joy!
We used to get actors to do the voiceovers, but they were way too expensive, so I started doing them myself. So you can see here what we're doing, and I'm really overdoing this bit because I think this briefing, how we take that strategy, that strong story, and we follow it through step by step, moment by moment, is the only thing I want you to get across. I want to get across that this idea of designing with time rather than space, as obsessing on the experience rather than the environment, is the first thing to do. And then we can work it out at any scale, but then the environment is there to enable it. And as much as I am an architect, and I love architects, but really, architects need to calm the fuck down, because it really isn't about them first. It is about the activities, the experiences. And we need to stop writing the word experience on the outside of buildings and rooms. The experience is everything. And interestingly now, in many ways, the most important thing that's happened with these projects, with Melbourne Airport, the most important thing that happened is we trained 20,000 staff in how to create and host better experiences. It wasn't the buildings in the end that were the big bit. And for Nike, I think the big bit is now all of these teams, whether they're ones that speak about built environment and the site or the location or the physicality of the interiors or the services of events and nutrition, those are all coming together as one department. So there aren't different departments arguing between, we need more services, or we need money for events, or we need more money for hosting, or people and culture, or, oh my God, we've spent all the money on the building. Now we can work everything better together. And whether we're doing a very, very small pilot, or whether we're doing a great big building project, we can run it through the same methodology. And that's essentially all I'm saying, that there is, in the face of the challenges we have all around us, I think Deming offers for us a methodology that can help us design places and experiences that have the power to change the way we think, feel, and act. And critically, for the user, for the worker, for the passenger, for the student, we can better attract and involve and create a sense of belonging because we're intentionally designing that. But also for the host, for the organization, we can align the organization and better guide them so that we optimize what they do. Right. Thank you very much for listening.
That was amazing. Estuvo muy buena, ¿o no? Ahora me dijeron que me... Spanish, bueno. Yeah, you can put it on.
Okay.
So for the questions and then to explain, to ask the questions, you can take them off.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bueno, la revolución de la experiencia fue auspiciada por Camp y ahora es el momento de las preguntas. Están todos invitados a meterse en Slido. Recuerden que lo pueden hacer a través del QR, lo pueden hacer a través de la web, hacer sus preguntas o votar las preguntas que más les interesen. Así las más votadas son las que vamos a hacerle a Adam, ¿sí? Entonces, tienen unos minutos nada más. La verdad que quedé muy impresionada. Muchas ganas de conocer Nike. I would be thrilled to walk there and to see the Nike campus. Right. Looks amazing.
It's great.
And everybody's wearing active wear.
You get lots of free gear. Yeah.
Wow.
But you can't wear Adidas. No Adidas.
Yeah, of course. If you're wearing Adidas, you're out. No, porque quedé muy impresionada con eso del campus de Nike y cómo se tiene que contar una historia como en todo. Hasta los políticos tienen que contar una historia, los lugares también, los lugares de trabajo también tienen que contar una historia y por eso llevarte a través de la experiencia. ¿Les parece? Arrancamos con la primera pregunta. ¿Tuvieron tiempo hasta ahora para hacerlas? En Slido tenés que poner el hashtag, el numeral WorkTech_MTV. Tal vez nos quedamos con las preguntas que dan.
Or you could just ask me a question.
Secuela. No, that would will break the line. No, maybe it's an expression. So, arrancamos con la primera, ¿les parece? Con la primera pregunta, tienen un poco más de tiempo. ¿Sabes que me gustaba esa pregunta? Qué bueno que la votaron. Yo no la hice, pero esa pregunta, I'm gonna ask you the first question. That is, ¿cuál sería el proyecto de tus sueños? Which would be the project of your life? Like the one you dream about?
Yes.
Like a project.
I'd like to do, I think, new cities, particularly in northern India at the moment. There are lots of new cities being created by big engineering companies. And essentially, it's almost like a city in a box. It is a similar design that in the most efficient and effective and tailorist way of doing things, it is saying that you will work here, you will learn here, this is where you might eat and shop. And it's incredibly miserable because there is no kind of cross-fertilization. And it's leading to a more and more polarized, separated society. So Songdo, which is a new city outside Seoul, is like that. So I would love to have the opportunity to better brief a new city.
And for how many people live there? ¿Cuánta gente vive ahí?
Songdo is 1.2 million people.
1.2 million? 1.2.
Yeah.
It's like Montevideo, our city. Montevideo is more alike of the amount of people. I'm going to ask you in Spanish so you can wear those. Hay muchos ejemplos de proyectos maravillosos y muy grandes en su presentación. ¿Cree que su enfoque también funciona para proyectos pequeños?
Yes. Okay. I think an event like this is a fine example of that, in that the way you were invited over the last few months, you were warmed up to this. There were maybe individuals that you were interested in meeting, both in the audience and on stage. And then the way this works is a beautifully choreographed thing that is partly broadcast, but partly participation. And so I think in some ways I'm talking about exactly the same thing at every scale. We do lots of university projects. And I think particularly when I think about what happens in the classroom and how we need to better choreograph collaboration is critical to this. So what you're doing in the world of work is exactly the same in the world of education. But I think education is better at all of these different scales.
Yeah. And also in education, you have a lot of stress as well, as working places.
Yeah.
Yeah. Que en los lugares, en los lugares de estudio también uno a veces sufre el estrés que puede tener también en un lugar de trabajo. Entonces, aminorar eso en lo de la estructura, en lo del armado, en la experiencia es interesante. Vamos con la siguiente pregunta. ¿Tenemos tiempo? Sí. Yo mirando gente. ¿Qué tan transferible y relevante cree que es su método para esta región? South America, maybe Latin America.
Well, you need to answer that. I think this... Carolina spoke about this in terms of how the professionalization of services over the last 3 generations has become ever more distinct. And as a result, organizations are very siloed. You know, they're broken in terms of different departments not working better together. So I'm interested in how essentially you better align organizations. And I think that should be useful for anywhere. I also think that, you know, within your culture, I think there are probably many elements here about how you create, whether it's in a market or a festival, that you think about the live experience first, and then you might use that to inspire workplace. So I think I would say that yes, I'm sure it is all around. We just need to bring it out. And actually, I'm sorry I showed you images from North America and Europe. I don't think these are places ahead at all. They're just ones I know.
Thank you so much, Adam. Very, very interesting. And so inspiring as well. Thank you.